Mini has just unveiled the 2025 Mini Countryman SE All-4, and it goes all electric to begin with. It's going to follow with some internal combustion engines later on. And looking at this design, I'm not so sure I prefer this over the old version, because it feels like this follows the trend of removing the designer's touch in the cars. This feels like a block of metal that's been sculpted with rulers and not with the hand of a designer. So what we're going to do in this video is have a look at the old one. I'm going to show you exactly what's new. It's pretty substantial design change for the new 2025. But before we jump into Photoshop, let's have a look at this article from CNET. I'm going to link this down in the description. So Mini's largest model goes electric with up to 287 miles of range. You can see this is the new design. We talked about the new Mini Cooper design, which I actually kind of like. I think that has more of that round, soft Mini vibe that I think every Mini should have. Now this is a pretty big car, so they ask here, how big can a Mini get before it's no longer a Mini? This is the largest model to ever wear the Mini badge, growing a full 10% over the previous generation. You have two new battery-powered trim levels with up to 287 miles of range for the single motor. So you have the Countryman E and the Countryman SE All-4. And as you can tell by the names here, the All-4 is all-wheel drive, and the E is front-wheel drive with 204 horsepower for the base motor. You have 0 to 60 in 8.6 seconds, which is decent for a commuter car like this is. And then you have the Countryman SE All-4, which adds a second electric motor to the mix, climbing to a combined 230 kilowatt or 313 horsepower, which sounds pretty good for this type of package. You have 364 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds, but the top speed is still just 112 miles per hour, which is totally fine, because how often do you go faster than 112 miles per hour? But this question that I still have, when you push an EV up to the top speed, how long can you stay there before you drain the battery? So you have 287 miles of range for the E single motor and 269 for the All-4. Since this is a dedicated EV, you do have fast charging. It's 130 kilowatts, which is decent. 10 to 80% takes under 30 minutes. You have the front-wheel drive Countryman C coming later, and these are internal combustion engine versions. You're also going to have the all-wheel drive S All-4 and the high-output John Cooper Works All-4. And on the exterior styling, it gets hit with the same minimalist stick the designers took to the Cooper. But as I said, I think the Cooper looks better because it still has at least round headlights and more of a fluid design in the Cooper. This is more of a chiseled look that looks more like a product design than a car design, and that's the trend we're in right now. The Countryman signature fender vent garnish is also missing. Like the rest of the crossover, the elements has been scaled up and moved to the C-pillar. We're going to have a look at that when we look at the side view. Interior, you do have the System 9 software powering a round OLED display. You can see that right here. What I like about this display is that you have this vintage styling to it as one setting, and this display is pretty much the only display you get in the interior of the new EV Countryman. But the good news is that you do still have physical buttons down here. So we're going to have a look at this as well when we jump into Photoshop, which we're going to do right now. So let's have a look at the front end and compare the old Countryman to the new one, the 2025. So I used to have this Cooper Works. It was a pretty fun car. I think it had a 6-speed manual. Maybe it was a 5-speed. Pretty sure it was a 6-speed. I kind of like this design, even though a lot of people don't like the Countryman because it looks more like an SUV compared to, a Mini Cooper. But I still think this had this friendly Mini face. So the differences here is, first of all, the headlights feel like they became a lot smaller in the new one. And also, it just feels way less analog or fluid in its design, the new Countryman down here. As you can see, it's a lot more chiseled, and I'm not so sure I'm a huge fan of this frame of the grille that now cuts through the clear separation that we had in the 2023 model, which is this bumper right here with the fog lights in the bottom. Very funky styling. This looks like a design that the designers actually had a lot of fun sculpting this and sketching this up, while this looks like it's been designed straight into a 3D software. So they skipped the sketch phase. That's what I feel when I look at this new design. And also look at the headlights here. They feel like they got a little smaller, and they also have a lot more angle, sharp corners and angles to it, which I don't know if it suits Mini to have this type of styling for even the Countryman, which before still had not round headlights, but still more of a fluid design in here. And this is, as I said, the trend we're in right now, to just chisel everything up. And as I said, it feels like cars today, we're just skipping the sketch phase. We're skipping that phase, jumping straight into Alias Automotive or Rhino or whatever 3D software they're using these days, and start to design the cars from scratch from 3D. So looking at the side view here, and the same kind of feel goes for the side. I do like that we still have this roofline that is separated from the rest of the body, and it also still has this dip right in this area. So the roof is black, as you can see, but we don't have this beautiful line that kind of makes a framing for the greenhouse. And what this line does is, on all Minis up until 2025, it feels like the greenhouse now kind of extends up from the body, and this is the framing that we have going all around the greenhouse and separates it from the rest of the body. And that is now gone. As you can see, we don't have this chrome piece, which is one of these trim pieces in modern cars that is chrome that I actually like. There's not a lot of those, but I do think on the Mini it suits it to have this chrome piece that unfortunately is gone now in the 2025 model. And you can see this trim piece right here that I talked about in the front fender is now gone, and instead they moved that to this area right here in the C-pillar. So this looks pretty, I don't know if it's weird or what's going on here, but I feel like they had to do something to keep this typical graphic piece for the Countryman, and instead of just removing it, they kind of wanted to implement it somewhere else. I would much rather not see this here, because it feels like a piece that doesn't belong onto the rest of the car. But overall, I do like the design. You can definitely still see that it is a Countryman. We still have the two-tone body and the roof, which is nice. We also have a sharp end point and a very vertical front end without this bumper piece that we have in the 2023. Not so sure about these wheels. The wheels here look almost too simplistic. If I were to have these wheels, I would much rather have it be with a framing of the same color going around it, something like this, because now it just feels like the spokes of the wheels themselves are just poking into the tire itself, and I would rather have just a framing for it, an outline of the same color that the spokes are, to kind of house the framing and separate the wheels from the tires graphically. But other than that, we do have some styling in the body itself. This line right here, as you can see, it feels more organic and more fluid, more like some, it's designed by a hand and not by a computer software. Same goes for up here. And now we still have this line over the axles, both in the front and in the rear, but this got more static. We have just a curvature here and then just straight fading into this area in the passenger door. Overall, I still think it's a pretty decent looking design. So let's have a look at the rear view, and I think this is where they stripped the Countryman down the most, and it kind of lost a lot of its personality. I love these Union Jack taillights that we have, specifically when they're dark like this and kind of dialed down a little bit. It just looks very cool. And the thing about Cooper, all Mini Coopers and the Countryman, they have these oversized graphics. So the taillights are pretty oversized for the rest of the package. And what that does, it just shrinks down the rest of the design. It makes it feel smaller than what it is. And they didn't really do that on the new Countryman, and this makes it feel even larger, even though it is 10% bigger than the outgoing model. Having these taillights be almost proportionally correct to the rest of the body now makes it look like a proper big SUV, and it definitely doesn't look like a Cooper anymore or Mini anymore. We don't really have a shoulder line, as you can see, and we have nothing going on in the tailgate section right here, except for the Countryman logos and the Mini logo up here. Overall, a pretty clean design, but I do think that Mini lost some of its identity, which is unfortunately something that's happening across the entire automotive field. right now. Let me know which one of these you prefer when it comes to design. The old bubbly design with the oversized headlights and taillights, or the new, feels more serious and less fun, but I kind of like these taillights still. I just want them to have a little bit bigger size, so we still have that oversized feel like we have in the old one. Now the interior, thankfully, they kept the physical buttons for the new 2025 model, which is fantastic because that is definitely something that is going away. You can see those down here. Then we have this big screen which can show you whatever you want, a bunch of different information on the screen, because that's the only screen you have, so it needs to have a lot of configurability to it. But again, they moved this minimalist feel. Of course, they transferred it into the interior as well. And looking at these two designs, there's no doubt which one I would pick. I would definitely pick the old one because we do have sort of a gauge cluster here, and we also have some styling in the dashboard. Look at these lines here with some different material going on here, dipping down. A lot more physical buttons, and we also have the same kind of screen in the middle. Pretty much the only thing I prefer in the new one are the vents, the air vents, because I think these look a little bit more upscale than what we had in the 2023 model, even though there was nothing wrong with them. But overall, I definitely prefer the old interior. And when it comes to the exterior design, I have to say I still prefer the old design because, as I said, it feels like the designers actually sketched it up before they jumped into the 3D software, and that's the sort of problem that I have with specifically the Countryman and not so much the Mini Cooper. But I wish we went back to this trend where you can see the line flow of a hand onto the cars that are being produced today.